minutes of dead noise. Okay, so last time I launched this rocket, and that was Moonlander. So this time I'm just going to take basically the same rocket, but it's way chunkier. So technically that other rocket could have totally made it to Minmus, which is, it's like a mini moon outside the orbit of the main moon of Kerbin. So I could have taken that rocket, and then I built this one to instead hopefully go to Minmus and the moon in one trip. I don't actually think it might have theoretically been possible to do that, but it was rough. Music is too loud. Okay, let's knock game volume down a little bit more. Hopefully it's better. If not, let me know. So let me just, this rocket might still be crazy overkill. Yeah, it's crazy overkill. Let me knock off just a couple of these fuel tanks that we don't need. It was a fairly cheap rocket either way, but if I'm doing a relatively simple mission, there's no need to carry a billion things of fuel. So the main differences on this rocket compared to the previous one is that we got these much better engines now. They're both way more powerful. Like these are the mainsail engines. They're kind of the main, for most of the game, this is the main engine you use, just because it's very powerful. It's relatively cheap. It's got gimbal. It's relatively efficient. Like this is your main first stage engine most of the time once you unlock them. Like technically it's a little bit less efficient than some of the initial engines for vacuum, but it's more efficient at sea level, so that's the main thing. Like it's 285 ISP versus 250, so that's, or 260, so that's, and since it's the first stage engine, that's going to be where you need that efficiency. And then for the second stage, I have the Pt1 engine, which looks dinky, but it's actually way more efficient than... Okay, it's so the engine I had on that previous rocket was 345 vacuum ISP, whereas this one is 350, so it's only a little bit more, but it's significantly more powerful, and it's way shorter relative to the rocket, which is useful for a bigger rocket like this. Yeah, solid is terrible. I mean, it's very powerful, but it's terrible. Oh shit, I have twin bore engines. That would make way more sense, I think, than... So the twin bore engine, it's an engine combined with a fuel tank. So it's less flexible in terms of how you can place it and how you can build it, but it's also relatively cheaper and it's more powerful. Like you get more thrust for a single booster. So I might swap these side boosters out for that. It's not necessary, but I mean, it's cheaper and more efficient, and that's kind of the whole deal. Sometimes stuff with these, when you're dealing with these radial decouplers, they get weird sometimes. So you just gotta kind of futz with them until you get stuff symmetrical. There we go. Drop that down so it's roughly even. I could change this middle stage, or the core stage to it too, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. So this should give me significantly higher thrust to weight ratio, which is unnecessary, but why not? Let me... So one of the things I unlocked after the last stream was I unlocked these fuel ducts, which they're kind of unrealistic compared to reality, but they let you pump fuel actively while you're flying, and they are directional. You can see they got these arrows on them. So basically, when you're dealing with a rocket like this that has side boosters, you would either just ignite the side boosters and then leave the middle one to save, to save efficiency, I guess. I'm trying to think the best way to word that. Basically, you're burning fuel out of all these tanks, but the whole point of staging is that when you stage, you have a smaller but fully fueled rocket, because your ability to put payload is all based on how much of your mass of your rocket is fuel, basically. So you want to make sure that when you stage, you have as much fuel as possible. So you would either just save your middle stage completely, or you would throttle it way down so it's burning way less fuel than it needs to. Assuming your side boosters are powerful enough to handle that. But with these fuel ducts, what you can do is you basically, while these you light all 3 engines at full power, but then you pump fuel from the side tanks into the middle tank. So basically, these side tanks are fueling both the side boosters and the center rocket until you stage, and then once these side tanks are empty, you have just the middle tank to fuel everything, which is, it basically just gives you, it's not a huge difference, but it just gives you more delta V overall. So you can see, like here, if I, with this, I get, or here, without this, I get 2,800 meters per second on the first stage, and then when I drop the side boosters, I have an additional 765. So that's, I can't do math. Where's a calculator? So that's 2842 plus 765. I know there are tools in-game to do that math, but I'm lazy. So so that's without the fuel duct. If I add the fuel duct, I get 1760 plus 2317. So that's another 400 meters per second just for adding this tiny little fuel duct. Now, in reality, if I was building a real rocket, fuel ducts like this don't really exist. Or they kind of do. Like, the space shuttle technically had... hang on, let me get a picture. So, is there a good side picture? So, the main engines of the space shuttle, like, ignore the side boosters, the main engines were on the space shuttle itself. Oh, god damn it, why does Google so... I need to stop using Google. It's so terrible with viewing images. Well, that's a nice high-quality pit photo. But the engines are on the booster, but all the fuel's in this fuel tank. So there is technically a fuel duct connecting this fuel tank into the orbiter to fuel the engines, because that way the fuel tank is just dumb. You can just dump the fuel tank and it's relatively cheap, and then you recover the engines on the orbiter. That's why they did that. But generally speaking, when it comes to rockets like this, they don't use that. Like the Falcon Heavy, which is basically this exact configuration, where you've got three parallel liquid stages. Early on in development, they wanted to do this fuel duct thing, but they found it A, very difficult, and B, unnecessary because their rocket was so efficient. So they didn't do it. But doing it in reality is a really hard problem that they generally don't. But in game, you literally just do this, and then it'll actually, wait, where did that go? Where did my fuel duct go? That's weird. There's a hotkey. If you hover over it and press U, it's supposed to make the fuel duct shorter, but it apparently appears to just... Oh, it's glitchy sometimes. It put the fuel ducts inside the rocket. That's not where I want them. So we'll just leave it ugly like that. So this is going to be way more than enough thrust and fuel to get where I need to go. I might actually extend these side tanks again, even though I don't need to. It'll just mean that in the future I can use the same rocket for other stuff, and no problem. There we go. I don't like that the color of this stage is different than the color of this. That bothers me, but that's fine. That's the cost of efficiency and part count. So I think we're pretty much good to go to Minmus. Let me double check I've got all my stuff in here. So I basically same experiments as last time, except this time I'm bringing the Science Junior, which is kind of the the big obnoxious science experiment, which is a pain to do. I'm bringing that with me as opposed to last time where I put it on the first stage, or I put it on the second stage and then dumped it accidentally without using it, so I just wasted it. Yeah, on this campaign right now, I do not have any sort of stage recovery mod installed, but they absolutely exist, and I normally use them. But I'm just trying to keep things simple for tutorial purposes. Oh, one other difference is that I have these side containers to hold surface science experiments, which are a thing that you only get if you buy the Breaking Ground DLC. It's just kind of a cool extra thing to put down on planets when you actually land, so you'll see that when I actually land. So, yeah, rocket should be fine. Oh, one thing I was going to try is I want to see if I can get a... Because this mainsail engine is very powerful, and it's a very good first stage engine, but because I have these crazy powerful side boosters, I totally don't need it. So I could put a more efficient, like slightly more vacuum-optimized engine on there. So I could put a skipper, which is a lot cheaper, and it's a bit more efficient. The only problem is that then when I drop the side boosters, the middle one goes down to the 0.71 thrust to weight. But if I drop this tank, now it's 0.9, that should be enough. So the thing is with, like, if you're taking off, you have to have a thrust to weight more than 1. No matter, like, you can have an inefficient rocket that is like 1.1, and that's bad, but you can do it. But you cannot do that with a... But you have to have more than 1. Whereas when you're in a second or a third stage, when you're in space, it kind of doesn't matter. There's good reason to have good thrust to weight, but it's not necessary. With a second stage where you're still in the atmosphere, but you're high enough up, you can kind of get away with less than 1. So this is going to be 0.9. That's going to be a little bit dicey, but as soon as it burns a little bit of fuel, it'll be fine. So we'll try it out. It just means that rather than going fully horizontal sooner, I just need to give it a little bit more angle before I tilt fully over into the gravity turn. And hopefully you'll see that. Realistically, this is probably overall a worse rocket without that mainsail, but like I said, the thrust to weight on the first stage is still crazy. It's almost 2. And what was I going to say? No, and it's just crazy overpowered anyway, and this will be a little bit cheaper per rocket. Not that money's... I mean, this campaign I have money cranked up just to get through everything sooner, but having more money's good. Oh, those lights are on. Didn't need that. Oh, also I have this crew capsule holds 3 crew instead of 1, so that's useful. Let me... While I'm on the pad, I can go through and do this science experiment, because now I have a scientist on board, so he can collect and reset these, reset the experiments. Also, I have this installed, or not this, which is a science mod, which is not stock, but it's super useful for just getting through all the science stuff. Ah. Where's my reset camera button? I can do that, and then I can climb down a little bit, collect the data from that, and then restore it. So scientists can restore... There's 2 different kinds of science experiments. There's ones like thermometers and pressure and barometers, where you do the science, and then you can collect the data, and then you can just do them over and over again. And then you've got the Science Junior, which is this big materials bay, and then you've got the goo container. And those ones, you do them once, and you can collect the data from them the same way, but then they are inoperable until a scientist comes down and manually resets them. So that's something that is... That's the main reason you want to bring a scientist on missions, at least until you get laboratories. That's a whole separate thing. So... Minmus. So you got Kerbin. It's, you know, the launch site is perfectly equatorial here. So it's you just turn directly to the east and you go up and you will get to space and you'll get to a nice clean orbit, and the moon is on that perfect clean orbit. Minmus, on the other hand, is an asshole, and it's got a 7-degree inclination. So you could use MechJeb, which is a mod, which is very useful, but if you're just starting out, you should probably learn how to do it manually. So unfortunately, there's not a ton of, unless I'm not aware of it, there's not a ton of great tools for lining it up. Like you can see, the Space Center's here. So if you want to match inclination with something, you have to launch, or you have to do the maneuver in. They're called ascending and descending nodes. It's basically where the orbits intersect. So like if I was launching this way, like facing this way, and Minmus is currently at the top of its its inclination up here, and I try to match that orbit, I never will, because no matter how hard I burn, even if I burn straight up, I'm going to be tilting my orbit in a different orientation. I can show that in a little bit. But if you want to launch straight into the same orbit as Minmus, you would want to launch while the Space Center is lined up with the orbit, and then fire into that inclination. This is probably a really bad explanation, but hopefully it'll make more sense in a little bit. I could also just launch into a simple equatorial orbit and then match the inclination from there, but that would take quite a bit more fuel, so I'm going to try to avoid that. So my best bet is to wait. So right now the Space Center's here. We're going to orbit around, and then once it's roughly lined up with the orbit over here on this side, I will then launch into a 7-degree southern. So gotta remember. Also, my rocket is oriented weird, so I don't even know which direction. So I need to aim this way, a little bit past 90, and that should at least take some of the delta V requirements out of matching that inclination. So I could also use Flight Engineer, I believe, to. So this will tell me specifically how long until my ascending node, and that's 2 hours. 2 hours. But I'm just going to make things simpler for new people, I'm just going to try to eyeball it. Because the Flight Engineer is also a mod. So basically I'm just going to time warp forward, waiting for the orbit to align. Don't worry about where the Minmus is right now, because that we'll worry about when we actually do the injection burn. Right now we're just trying to get an orbit that is in roughly the same inclination as Minmus is. Inclination just means tilt, by the way, if that wasn't obvious. So you gotta be real careful. Basically, always when you're time warping, you gotta be real careful. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it, trying to see. So basically, right now I've got the orbit roughly lined up with the planet. So now I just gotta wait for the Space Center to be roughly in the middle of the planet. I guarantee there are better ways to do this. This is just the quick and dirty and ugly way to do it. So again, this is the Space Center here. It's on the far side of the planet right now. I'm just waiting for it to be about here, so I know it's in the middle, which means I'm roughly at the ascending node of this orbit. And that looks about right. So now I need to launch, and I need to tilt. I need to pitch over to the east like I normally would, but add a little bit of southernward tilt, and that should make it all work. What I could also have done is in the VAB, in the vehicle assembly building, I could have tilted the entire rocket 7 degrees that direction, and then just then I would have just tilted straight to my, straight to my quote-unquote east, and that would have automatically lined me up. But okay, I took way too hard of a turn there. We're gonna reset that. I had a quick save, didn't I? I think this is the right one. So, yeah, depending on your rocket aerodynamics, you want to be real careful when you pitch over, because if you pitch over too aggressively and your thrust isn't high enough, it'll cause problems. Is this still oriented properly? Probably not. No, it's not. So let's fast forward again to get that right. That was me. I was focusing too much on the inclination there and not enough on my speed because I was pitching over before I was going fast enough. There we go. That's a little bit more. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's just that the more perfect it is, the more efficient the launch will be. But it doesn't. If it's not 100% ideal, that's fine. Let me do this again real quick because it didn't save. Board. Let me get this up while I'm here. That's all just tedious science stuff. But yeah, if you use MechJeb, you literally just say, oh, I don't have the, I don't have the, never mind, ignore that. I don't have that unlocked right now. With this campaign, I'll probably just max out the tech tree, and then I'll just switch to my very heavily modded campaign afterwards. So you can see my prograde marker on the compass here. That's the green circle. So that determines the direction I'm currently facing, and you'll see I'm tilting my rocket a little bit down just to pull that prograde marker a little bit horizontal to help with the gravity turn. But you want to, if you have a rocket that doesn't have a ton of control authority, if it doesn't have a ton of gimbal, or if it's just really weirdly non-aerodynamic. It's happening again. It's happening again. Shit. Okay. Like that. That's what you don't want to do. Okay, this time I actually quick saved. So I think part of that might be because I'm going so fast. Like, I actually have so much thrust to weight that, like, normally you want to have a bit of a... So I'm actually going to throttle down to keep my thrust to weight lower. Because I'm going so fast that when I first start to turn, I'm trying to fight against way more velocity than I need to, and that's actually a problem. So it's technically less efficient to launch with lower thrust to weight, but it's also, in this situation, it's a little bit safer, I guess. If this rocket was longer, it would probably be better. It'd be more, I guess, I don't know. I don't know if it'd be more aerodynamic or not. It's also possible that these fuel tanks aren't as aerodynamic as nose cones are, so that could be part of it. So this time, instead of dragging the prograde marker down so much, I'm going to try to stay roughly within it, just a little bit below exact center. Oh god, it's happening. Okay, barely holding. I think these... Do the twin bores have... They have gimbal, but are they only in one axis? Is that what's happening? Okay, I think that's my problem. Okay, so it's actually a rocket design problem. So... Let me... Oh, I don't know if I can actually recover to the VAB. Or yeah, I can just recover it properly. Because if they do have multi-axis gimbal, it might just be that it's very minor or something. Because I was holding pitch up as hard as possible, and it looked like those side engines were not moving. So I only have that middle, really dinky engine to control my pitch authority, which is a problem. So let me load that rocket up. So this is the issue with those twin bore engines. Okay, so it's 1.5 vectoring range. It's not single axis, but it's 1.5 is like nothing. Also, actually, that's not that much worse than the mainsail. That's weird. I wonder if it is secretly one axis and they just don't mention it. I think, okay, this is dumb after all of that, but I'm just going to replace them back with the side boosters I had before, because I think they were just just more efficient, I guess. And also I'll replace those nose cones with, instead of the dome fuel tanks, I'll just replace them with actual nose cones. This will technically be a bit more expensive, I think, and technically not as powerful, but I think that's worth it for a rocket that doesn't tumble out of control. And you know what? I'm just gonna go simple. It's not absolutely efficiency optimized, but mainsail engines are good. They're powerful. They have decent gimbal. Actually, how much gimbal did that skipper have? Okay, so it had the same as the mainsail. But now I know all of these side stages are the same engine, same gimbal. Should be fine. Okay, so let's save this again. Turn these for aesthetic purposes. And I think we're good. It could also be that, like, my, oh geez, I have too many antennas on here. It could be that, like, my landing legs up here are inducing drag and stuff. That's... What I can do, just to be safe, is throw some winglets on here. So that both gives me a little bit more drag at the back of the rocket, which, oh, there's my problem. My center of drag is way above my center of mass. So that would be causing a problem. And, oh, oh, and without the winglets, it's a bit higher up. So, that's my problem. So, just general rule of thumb. So you have these markers down here you can turn on and off. You always want your center of mass to be above your center of lift, or your aerodynamic center, basically. So by default, this is my center of mass, and this is my center of drag, which means that, you know, the drag is up. You think of it like throwing a dart. You want the feathers at the back of a dart have a lot of drag, whereas the metal tip of the dart is very heavy, because you want the dart to go straight. So the drag pulls the lightweight back of the dart, or the feathers pull the lightweight back of the dart backwards, and the weight faces forwards. And if you have a rocket that has the opposite of that, it's a problem, because that means that technically the rocket wants to spin around and fly backwards. If you just shut the engine off and just let it tumble, it would spin around and fly engines first, because apparently somehow on this rocket the center of drag is that high up. If I pulled these off, that center of drag marker might be broken, but in theory, that's the issue here. So I think I'll just stick with the 2 winglets, just because technically this might still be wrong. The center of drag might still be too high, but between these winglets can actually pitch a little bit, and also the engines can gimbal. So between that, it should be able to overcome that little difference, as opposed to gigantic difference of center of drag. So that should be more than enough, I think. So let's launch that. This should be way better. Yeah, if you haven't noticed, I know the concepts pretty well, but that does not mean I'm particularly fantastic at designing the rockets. So don't take everything I do as gospel. Just, I do know what I'm talking about. It just doesn't make me good at it, basically. Okay, so let's try this again. Oh, that's, like I said, doesn't make me good at it. I just ignited 1 engine instead of all 3. Now I can start pitching. Got tons of thrust to weight on this. Did I put, okay, I do have the fuel lines up. So now you can see I'm tilting, I'm pitching way harder than I was last time, but I'm still totally, like, I'm in very fine control. I can wiggle this thing no problem, whereas before I was, like, struggling to keep it straight. Actually not pitching hard enough here. The general rule of thumb I've always heard and used is that by about 8 to 10,000 meters, you want to be about 45 degree pitch. I'm gonna throttle down a little bit just because I don't want to explode from overheating. So I'm still pretty low in the atmosphere. Yeah, for gravity turns, it's usually about 10,000 meters you want to be 45 degrees, and about 45,000 meters you want to be about like 80 or like just bordering on 90 degrees. Okay, so side boosters are almost empty. And there we go. So drop those, go back up to full thrust, which I actually don't need, and I'm actually going to throttle that down again. Remember, drag scales, I think, exponentially with velocity. So you don't want. So if you're still low in the atmosphere, you don't want to be going crazy fast because you're just wasting fuel that is going to get burned off by the air. Once you're in the upper atmosphere of space, then you can just go full thrust because that velocity is going to count either way. Also, I was not paying attention to my apoapsis, which is my maximum altitude, because I'm way higher than I need to be. 70,000 is space, and I'm at 150. So we'll just let that ride for a bit. Let's see how my inclination looks. I guess I can't really see it properly. According to this, it's 7.4 degrees, and I need 7, so that's actually pretty good. So now, instead of having to get into orbit and then correct 7 degrees of inclination, I need to correct 0.4, which is... Inclination is a huge burn of fuel. While I'm coasting, like right now I'm just coasting up to my max altitude, but I can do a little bit of science in the meantime. And then get the scientist out here and restore it. I'm going to have an absurd amount of extra fuel on this thing. I can leave this open. There's no reason to have it closed in. Actually, what I'm going to do... Normally, you would wait till you're at your apoapsis to circularize, but I actually don't want to circularize this high. So I'm going to actually burn downwards a little bit, which will not only... Which I'm still accelerating horizontally, so I'm still gaining that, I'm still pulling this periapsis out of the planet. But in the process, I'm also dragging down my apoapsis a little bit, which is good because I want to be as close to the planet as possible when I do my Minmus injection. Okay, so let's straighten out a little bit. This is definitely not the most efficient trajectory ever, but, it works. Okay, so 127 by 97, that's a very non-circular orbit, but whatever. So my final inclination is 8.2, so actually that last burn there kind of fucked me up a little bit, but it's still only 1.2 degrees, that's not bad. Real quick, before I do the injection, I have the new science experiments I can do. Which, oh fuck, did they not get packed? Okay, they didn't get packed properly. Because of the way it saves. I had it set when I saved the rocket, but apparently it reset to the default inventories. In a science experiment you can carry on your Kerbal and use it in space and on planet surfaces, which is nice. It's just free science. But apparently it didn't save, so we're just going to go without it. So, now we need to encounter Minmus, so just kind of got to pick a point on the orbit and put a big prograde marker on it. And I got really lucky, and I apparently got an encounter on my first attempt. The maneuver nodes are really finicky, and it's something that's very hard to describe how to use them, so I'm just not going to bother. No. Just trying to find a good encounter. So Minmus is really nice because it's very small and very low gravity, but that also means it's slightly harder to encounter. Actually, wait, why is my... Oh, never mind. That makes sense. Okay, that's probably a good enough encounter I can deal with. It's not perfect, but it's fine. I have so much fuel, I really don't care that much about making it perfect. That's weird. I don't know why this is lit weirdly. A graphical bug, I guess. So when you do set a maneuver node, which again, it's a complicated thing that is, you kind of got to just fiddle with until you understand it. It'll put a marker on your compass here, on your nav ball. You just orient with that, and then you burn. And then once this timer says start burn in 30 minutes, so I can just hit this button to fast forward to that. Oh, although I have, here, let me turn this off for now. I don't want to deal with that right now. So I'm just floating around, waiting to get to my burn time. So once your pilots level up, or you get like really good probe cores, you can just have it automatically orient with your maneuver node. But for the time being, kind of gotta do it manually. So now I just burn while this, burn this much delta V. Although you can see this white line is where I'm gonna run out of fuel in this first stage. Then I just gotta dump that and ignite the second stage, or the third stage technically. Which has a lower thrust, but that'll be accounted for in the burn time here. And now my rocket is way more maneuverable, because I don't have all that weight to lug around. As you can see, while I'm burning, I'm pulling this trajectory way out. Oh, wait a minute. I fucked that up big time, didn't I? I just got an encounter with the moon instead of Minmus. Okay, well that was a mistake, but guess what? We're just going to the moon instead. Sorry, guys. Okay, so that was a huge fuck up on my part, because the yellow orbit is the one I have targeted, but I just totally blanked out on that, and instead I went to... What the fuck are you doing, pun? So I got this encounter, and I'm like, oh, I got so lucky. I got this encounter really easily, and that's because it was the moon, and the moon is way bigger and way heavier and way closer, so it's way easier to get an encounter with. So if I had a quick save, I could load that, but I didn't, so we're just going to the moon instead. Which I think I have a separate mission for that, so that's fine. I need to do it again anyway. Let me actually run back to the Space Center real quick and see if there's a mission I need to take to do that, or make sure I have the missions selected to do that. Okay, so yeah, I need to do... I have 2 separate, very profitable missions for the moon anyway, so this fuck-up is not actually a big problem. Hopefully it's obvious the mistake I just made, because it was a very stupid one. It was literally just I looked at the wrong planet and said, yep, I'm going the right way. Wait, what? I'm very confused now. Why does it say I get a moon encounter when the moon's back there? Am I going that slowly? quick just go in here. Don't worry about this. This is just a tedious thing that I'm fixing. There. Two days? That's... What is the game smoking right now? I think something might be bugging out real weird, because... Yeah, something's bugged. Or I guess... Okay, I guess it's on the next orbit, it just didn't tell me that. For some reason. That's weird. Okay. So now my periapsis right now is way too high. So I can drop that down, just go retrograde. On the bright side, now that I have a scientist here, I can do all these experiments that I was only able to do once last time I came. So I can do this, I can collect that, go out. And I can restore these, so I can use them again, which I couldn't do previously. Okay, so last time I landed... I can't tell, because I'm on the... It's on the dark side. I landed on a crater around here, I believe. So this time I think I'll just land in the Midlands somewhere, just, you know... Let's say... Here-ish. That works for me. Although I should get a little bit closer and collect some more signs before I do that burn. Did I not reset this properly? I haven't, but that's a whole thing. And like, I don't, like, especially when it comes to stuff like EVA reports where you have to do it above every biome, and it's so weird and annoying that... I've explained that there are biomes for science, but I haven't really explained what that means. Basically, when you're going somewhere to collect science, there's both in space and on the planet, there's different zones where you know, different biomes you collect science from, and you can do the same experiments individually in each zone, generally speaking. But some experiments are global, some experiments are based on altitude, some experiments are based on, like, surface biome. It's a whole thing. Okay, that should be good. It's like I can get out and do this EVA report on every single... when I'm above every single biome on the planet in low space. And I can do it once in high orbit, and I can do it on the surface in each biome. And then if there's an atmosphere, I can do it in the low and high atmosphere. I don't know if that... I think that one is also in each biome, but I'm not positive. For the purposes of learning the game, I would say just, when you're doing a landing on the moon, try to land in a different place every time you do it, and you'll get more science out of it. And that's why this mod, this X Science mod, is super useful, because it'll tell you when you're in an area that has science you haven't collected yet, as opposed to just trying to remember it all, or trying... Because in the tracking center, there's a screen that... in the science R&D place, there's a screen that shows you all the science you've done and all the science you haven't done, but it's super annoying to navigate, so... I think it's much easier to just get this mod, and it tells you. Yeah, I might actually land... Okay, I'm probably just going to land in this big crater instead. I don't know if that might still count as midlands or it might count as craters. Speed it up a little bit. This is also good because it'll give these three guys more experience, which means when I go to Minmus, I can get, I can collect the deployed science faster. I can also might be able to unlock another science experiment to use. Also, I may have started the burn too late there, but I guess we'll find out. Nah, it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. Hopefully it'll be fine. No, yeah, it'll be fine. Because this timer down here doesn't account for, I think, fuel loss. Because, you know, if you have a certain velocity and you have a certain amount of thrust, you know theoretically exactly how long it takes you to slow down. But if you factor in the fact that you're losing thrust as you burn fuel, that means your thrust to weight ratio goes up as you burn. And that means that it'll pretty much always take, or it'll always take less time than you would think just doing the simple calculation, whereas this mod does the full calculation for you. And even then, it's not perfect. So I just slowed down and I turned my engine off just to, you know, I could leave it running at a really low thrust, but then that is burning fuel that is, you know, it's just going to be pulled by gravity anyway. So I'd rather just let myself speed up, you know, free fall and speed up a little bit. And then right as close to the end as possible, you want to burn to make sure that the fuel that you're expending is being expended and won't just be immediately undercut by gravity pulling you back down. Also, there's an EVA report here, so I'm just going to very quickly pop out and grab that and then board again. Which is not something I recommend doing, but you can do it. Okay, so now I can burn. Watch my surface velocity here. One thing to watch out for is if you're using the SAS here to hit retrograde and you're just burning to negate your velocity. Hey, cat, move, please. Please move. It always sucks when you're trying to land a rocket and there's a cat walking past your screen. What was I saying? Oh, if you're burning retrograde, that's usually good to just make sure that you're expending fuel in the right direction. But as you approach 0 meters per second, that retrograde marker is going to spaz out because then suddenly if you go up a little bit, your retrograde marker is upside down. So if you leave it set to retrograde, your rocket is going to go nuts trying to chase it. So once you get down to like 10 or like 20 or 10 meters per second, you got to turn that off and just operate it manually. Oh, okay, we're good. Nice steady surface here. Okay, so this is a midland crater. So that means in the future I can still land in the Midlands, but I don't need to. Okay, so now you can climb out, grab surface sample, grab EVA report, and then you also need to reset this again. I'm going to come back with like enough science to finish the tech tree probably, or close to it, because I have the science cranked way up. But I'll do a few more missions after that. Come on, do the science. There we go. Collect that, get out. So you can come down here, bounce around a bit. Plant a flag. You pretty much always want to plant flags when you land on a place with a new Kerbal for the first time, because for some reason planting a flag grants more experience than just landing. And experience is something where anytime a Kerbal does a new thing for the first time, he gains experience for it. Oh, the inventory system in this is so weird. There we go. This is just a surface science thing. So you have a experiment control center. You have a experiment. Right now I only have one, although there's a few different ones you get depending on the planet. And that's my scientist puts that down because the rate at which that recovers science is based on the, if a scientist places it, it's based on the level of the scientist. But then when you put down power generation items, you want to use a engineer because the rate of power generation is based on the level of the engineer that places it. If that makes any sense. Also, with regards to experience, for the planting flags thing, any Kerbals within like several kilometers of the flag being planted get the experience, so you don't need to do it 3 times with 3 different Kerbals. So we place these down. If I look at this, okay, it's connected, it's got power. So now these things just sit on the planet, and then over the course of a couple weeks or months or whatever, it'll slowly collect the science from this area. So that's that. I've already gotten a moon rock from the moon, so I shouldn't need to worry about that. So I think we're good here. Quick save. If I had left that, if I had done this more efficiently, I probably would still have enough delta V to go to Minmus from here. But if I didn't have the inclination change, if I had gone to Minmus first and then to the moon, I might have had enough even with this, like, gimped rocket. Okay, so now he's got to get home. So I'm pointed, like, my rocket is sitting almost perfectly on the retrograde side of the moon. So if I just launch straight up, it's going to be inefficient due to gravity losses, but it means I don't have to spend any fuel circularizing around the moon. So it might, I don't know if it's going to end up being more efficient or not, but I'm going to do it anyway just to see. I've got plenty of fuel. Because normally you would get into orbit of the moon and then from there do an injection burn backwards to get out of the moon's influence and go back to the planet. But if I just take up straight, almost straight, I should, I'm going to go a little bit retrograde just to point the right way. So normally you would never take off from the moon like this because you're just wasting fuel to gravity. But moon's gravity is relatively low. My thrust to weight is 10 right now, so that's not a big deal. And if I just point prograde now and just keep accelerating straight backwards, roughly. There we go. Now I can just keep burning to drop this down. Because even though I'm burning prograde, which normally would increase your orbit, I'm burning prograde relative to the moon, but the moon itself is I'm oriented in such a way that I'm burning retrograde versus Kerbin. So just because it says prograde here, that's only relative to my orbit of the moon, if that makes sense. So you're trying to return from a moon, you generally want to burn, you pretty much always want to burn prograde for like your rocket's direction, because that's always more efficient. But the direction you burn might technically be retrograde relative to the orbit of the planet. And then, so we should be good. We still have 1200 meters per second at delta V, but I'm just going to dump that into the atmosphere Kerbin. Quick save. And then fast forward. Like you can see, even though I was burning retrograde there, I have so much velocity. Like the moon is going fast enough that even though I was burning retrograde, I was only burning a little bit of the velocity of the moon, and I'm still technically moving in the same orbit of the planet, just a lower version of the same orbit. Oh Jesus, somebody's been talking in the Twitch. Multiple people have been talking in Twitch chat. Sorry, people in Twitch chat. I didn't realize I have a Discord I'm talking to, but hello, people. So yeah, technically I had enough fuel there. I could have just done a little hop on the moon to go to a different biome and get more science, but this is like a more of a tutorial stream than anything, so I'm not. I have the science cranked up so high it's really not necessary. And you can see that goo container I left on the surface is slowly generating a little bit of science for me. Not a ton, but... Oh, where's the planet? There's the planet. Okay, now... Let's go a little bit closer and then we can dump the... Okay, so I'm going to be coming down a little... Let me accelerate a little bit, or go radial out a little bit, and just to try to get my landing point in the daylight, because landing on the dark is just boring. It's fine, because I'm landing on a parachute, so it's like seeing doesn't really matter, but it's just boring. So yeah, this should be fine. It's technically based on my current mass, this mod is estimating that I'll take 2 orbits to land, but you know, I'll burn off some speed on the first orbit, I'll exit the atmosphere again, and then come down again to burn off the rest. But that's accounting for the mass of this first stage, or the rocket stage, but I'm going to be dumping that. So, like, your re-entry, like, the amount of, atmospheric drag that will impact your rocket is going to be based on, the mass of, both the cross-section of your re-entry vehicle and the mass of it. So if you have a really wide rocket, it'll bleed off velocity way faster, but... Also, if you have a very light capsule re-entering, it'll slow down faster. So right now, with the rocket stage, it's going to take 2 orbits, but I can pretty much guarantee that if I dump this... Let me quick save just to be safe. Now I'm going to drop down super quick because I'm so much lighter. Although if I close this, that generates drag, so if I close it... okay, that might not be calculated, might not be factored into the calculation here. So I might still come down on the night side, but it'll be pretty close. So... Hello. People in Twitch chat, if you're talking about the science mod, it's literally called X Science. It's, don't mind all those tabs that are things that people in Twitch chat don't recognize. So yeah, it's one of the first mods in the list because they do the stupid brackets thing, but it's X Science is the one you want. Okay, so I'm in the atmosphere. I can do some science real quick. This is risky, but I'm going to try to climb out and get EVA, even though I am technically re-entering currently. I'm also going to... Oh, is that not... Why does it keep doing that? Uh-oh, okay, nope. A little bit late for that. We're just gonna accept that. I just accidentally did another moon mission. I meant to do a Minmus mission, but I missed. So I went to the moon instead. So after this, I will just immediately launch the same rocket and go to the moon. Or go to Minmus instead. Although I have enough science now, I can probably take more science experiments to Minmus, which will actually be beneficial. Like it was all planned. The better burn calculation is... I mean, there's better burn timer is one of the mods, and then there's Kerbal Engineer, which is the one that has all the info on it. Which that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a mandatory mod. I would never want to play this game without that. See, my rocket stage there is because my capsule's so much lighter. I'm slowing down, whereas that thing's going 5 kilometers ahead of me now. Even though we were on the same orbit, because that thing's got a bunch of fuel left in it. It's really heavy and it's accelerating down. I don't know if it'll, does the temperature sensor, because the temperature sensor shows an actual temperature if you look at it, but I don't know if it calculates based on re-entry heating. No, it doesn't. So technically this is saying 200K, but that's not true. That's space temperature, that's not. That's upper atmosphere temperature. Speed this up a little bit. I don't know what the actual re-entry plasma is. At least several thousand degrees Celsius, obviously. Make sure that opens a bit earlier. This article that I'm seeing that is about the re-entry plasma temp, or like how hot it gets when you re-enter, but it doesn't actually list the temperature anywhere on here. It just says hotter than the surface of the sun, which is not useful. So maximum re-entry temperatures are around 2,900 degrees according to this. Oop, there goes the heat shield. That's fine. Is there any science to get here? There is. Whole bunch. Okay. Because I'm technically in highlands right now. That's one thing to watch out for when you're landing. By default, it shows you the sea level altitude. So right now I'm 900 meters above sea level, but it's I sent it in game chat. But by default, parachutes are usually set to open at 1,000 meters. So right now I'm 900 meters above sea level. So that means my parachutes would open only 100 meters above the ground, which is not very high. So that's something to watch out for. Didn't I pin the mod list in game chat? I didn't. Okay, well there you go. There we go, that's all the science done. Now I can recover this. And then we'll just launch the same rocket to Minmus, because I fucked up. Or almost same. Generally, Minmus requires about the same delta V or less than... Actually, I'm pretty sure it always requires less delta V, assuming you do the launch properly. If you screw up the inclination, it might require a tiny bit more, but it's a very minor difference. Okay, so... I can come in here and grab... What do I need to get these? Okay, so I want this. I want this. I want this, because that's another science experiment, and science is good. This is also science stuff, but I don't think for the time being it's super useful. External command seat, I want that. It's my favorite thing ever. Alright, bye, guy whose name I can't remember because it changes all the time. Just going through and cleaning up a lot of these tech nodes. I don't really need the stuff, but it's nice to have. Yeah, I did not put a lot of thought into what I just picked there, but that was a mission I didn't intend to do, so I think it's fine. Just trying to see if there's any other... I literally just planted a flag on the moon and they're asking me to do it again. I'm not doing that. You know, this is I have so much science, or so much money and so much science that I really don't need to worry about that. Can upgrade my tracking station though. And this, why not? Okay, so let's just load that same rocket and just tweak it a bit to add more science stuff, because I can. So I've got those two experiments, then I can add this one. So that one is only for the surface of the planet. Most of them work, most of them you can do pretty much everywhere, but this one is only on the surface. A lot of these are modded, so, oh, I got the magnometer now. Clipping through a little bit. I think that's everything there. I need to fix that thing with the inventory science. So this dude is not supposed to have a parachute, he's supposed to have a science kit. Those two again. Unfortunately, I didn't get the last. I can throw this in there, I guess. Or I'm gonna add another one of these storage containers, and that one. This, it's not necessary, but it's fun. And you know what, let's throw a communicatron, whatever it's called, throw that in there too. So that's good, this is all fine. Although I can make this look nicer by adding these. I think that's everything. Fix the staging that I screwed up last time. Yep, should be good. Okay. So now I'm gonna do that same thing I did last time with the inclination thing when I launch, just to make it easier to save some delta V. But this time I will not aim at the wrong planet or the wrong moon. I will aim at the right one, hopefully. Simp Flips in Twitch chat. I have Restock installed, which is it's a mod that it adds a couple new parts, but mostly it just makes all the existing parts look way better. Okay, so let's do exactly what we did last time and line this up. Actually, before I forget, I can do the seismic scan. Go. Okay, so I want to be pointing here. So if you have, so I kind of explained this last time, the cheap, shitty way. But if you want to actually do it right, you select the place you're going, and you hit the rendezvous on the Kerbal Engineer, and it'll give you these time to ascending node and time to descending node. Ignore whichever one's negative, and you just focus on the. So I need to fast forward 2 hours and 8 minutes from now. So if I fast forward, you see that time going down. And when that is right about to hit 0, that is when you launch into the proper inclination. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to. So I just overshot it a tiny bit, but that's fine. So you can see the ascending node means it's going down. So when I launch, I need to go a little bit south of center. Also, it appears that I was wrong about, it's actually a 6-degree inclination, not a 7-degree one. And this tab also shows you the relative inclination, so instead of just aiming for the right, instead of just sort of guessing, you can see what the difference is, and then you can adjust accordingly. Down a bit because I'm going very fast. So yeah, I started at a 6-degree inclination difference. I'm now at a 2-degree one. I got a little bit more to go, but not a ton. And basically, it's just while I'm not pitching nearly hard enough. Basically, while I'm dealing with my pitch and all that stuff, I'm also trying to move basically like yaw left and right to get this to adjust this inclination difference. I did not pitch nearly hard enough, so I'm going way more vertical than I should be. So the faster you're going, the harder it is to change. So, like, whereas at the start of the flight, I was able to radically change the inclination with just a tiny bit of horizontal difference, or like a yawing difference. Now it's because I'm already going so fast, the ability to change the inclination is way harder. It's you need way more fuel to do it because you're already going a certain inclination at a certain speed. Whereas when you're stationary, it's trivial. That's why it's so important to, like, generally speaking, if you're already in orbit, you want to do your inclination changes at the highest possible altitude above your target because you're going so slow at that point. You're basically stationary, so at that point it's really easy to just twist your orbit into whatever direction you want. Whereas when you're like in a low orbit and you're going 3,000 meters per second, you have to basically cancel out that 3,000 meters per second in order to change it to go 3,000 meters per second in a different direction. Or I guess more like 2,000 for Kerbin, but you know what I mean. Oh, I just... Man, I'm not on my game today. I just totally ignored how fast I was going, and I'm now in a 700,000 kilometer orbit. That's fine. I'm sure it's fine. This is why it's useful to use MechJeb, because then you don't need to worry about stupid stuff like that. Now I've got that magnometer. I can shoot out and get a little bit more science. And now while I coast, I can EVA him. And now I should have that science experiment on. Let me just quick save to be safe. I can't quick save while he's on a ladder. And then I can perform the science. There we go. And fuck that nut. Back on board. So this would be a good time to explain the Oberth effect and why it's bad to be doing these transfers from a really high orbit. But I have so much fuel, I probably just will ignore it. So, or I could just do the circularization here, I guess, at this altitude. So if I point basically straight inward and maybe a little bit retrograde, that'll actually cancel out some of this huge altitude I have, and then also push the orbit out this way so I can actually get into a circular orbit, or get into orbit and not just on a suborbital trajectory, hopefully. So see, this is already dropping way down, and oh, there goes that stage, so I can dump that. Okay, so now I'm in orbit. Get a little bit more altitude over here, so still far from circular, but it's way, 24 or 245,000 is a lot less than 700,000. So I'm at my relative inclination got really fucked up somehow. I was at 0.25 and now I'm at 2.5, but whatever, that's fine. So to fix that, you pick one of these nodes, either the ascending or descending. You generally want to pick the one that is higher altitude, because that'll be slightly cheaper delta V-wise, but at low orbit like this, it really doesn't matter. And then you use the pink things to adjust the inclination until it matches. And even if you don't have the mod installed, I believe it'll show under advanced orbital info. Or no, under rendezvous, I think? No. Well, it'll show you your inclination, and if you know the inclination of the target, then you can just adapt that way. So, I need to find, I believe... I'm not sure if I'm... Because the inclination looks pretty good. I think I need to go down more. Nope, I need to go up more. So... burn on a so right now I'm burning perpendicular to my direction of orbit, and by doing that I'm twisting the orbit to match the inclination of the other, or of the Minmus. Yes, this stream basically exists to just teach people who are interested, because I have some friends who wanted to learn to play. I'm not 100% sure why I can't get that inclination lower than 0.5, but 0.5 should be plenty to intercept it. Oh, it's because... What? How did I... Okay, let's fast forward to here, because apparently I was burning not at the descending node. So there's a limit to how close you can get to the right inclination if you're not at the right node. Now, if I face this way, it's much easier when you have a level up pilot. Okay, that was the wrong direction. And yeah, a lot of your time is spent looking at the nav ball, because that has a lot more information than just looking at the ship does a lot of the time. And it means you can see the differences you're having based on the orbits. There we go. That's 0.03 degree relative inclination, so that is very close. So, now if I want to actually intercept it, I just need to crank up prograde maneuver and wiggle around looking for an intercept. Which, this time, so last time I accidentally intercepted the moon and didn't realize it, but we're not going to do that again. I just basically had it. Ideally, when you're doing a transfer or a transfer like this, you want the intercept to happen when your orbit is just barely touching the orbit of the thing you're intercepting. Because if you like, I can get an intercept easily like this, but that means I'm burning extra fuel now, and then I'm adding velocity that I'm gonna have to bleed off in order to properly intercept the planet. If you get the intercept right like this, that means that right at the top of this orbit, you're gonna have effectively 0 velocity relative to Kerbin. You're just gonna be kind of hanging there before you fall back down. But if Minmus is at that location when you have close to 0 velocity, it means Minmus is gonna grab you instead. And then you just need to have a little bit of fuel to put yourself into a Minmus orbit, as opposed to having to cancel out extra velocity because you blew past it. But sometimes getting those intercepts is just tedious, so I might just have to accept a little bit of extra. Which again, right, this mission I have so much extra Delta V, it's not really a big deal. You can tell the approaches are these little arrows here. It'll show you, the closest approach based on your current orbit. So this is the orbit. This is the location Minmus will be in at closest, and this is where I'll be. So you see, I'm already on my way back down on this at the closest approach, which is a problem. Which means that I need to back up the orbit a little bit so that I'm earlier on. Oh, I can't speak. Although I think the problem is that because I'm not in a circular orbit around Kerbin, it's making this a lot more tedious than it would be. If I was in a circular orbit, it's way simpler to match these up. Okay, so now it's getting close. There we go. Let's go a little bit further back. Yeah, that's pretty good. So now once you center the camera on Kerbin, you get a relatively close intercept, and then you zoom in on you select the planet and you zoom in on here, and that'll show you relative to the planet you intercept, relative to your target, what your orbit's going to be, and then from there you just tweak that a little bit. So you get a nice close intercept. And with something like Minmus, where it's so low mass, you don't have to get this perfect on the first try, because it requires a very little delta V to adjust your orbit after the fact. It's mainly if you're dealing with like Eve or something, you really want to fine-tune that approach, because Eve is huge and heavy, and if you screw up, you hit the atmosphere and die. Which is not ideal, usually. So now, start the burn in 2 minutes. Let's fast forward to that. Let's see, start burn in 7, 6, 5. Then I can start burning. It's going to take a little while because this is a very low thrust engine, but it's also a very efficient engine, so it's worth it. So I can apparently get an EVA report. Normally getting out of the rocket while the rocket is burning is not recommended, but, it works. Actually fast forward a little bit, or... There's 2 different kinds of time warp. Normally, if you hit the arrow keys, it'll increase it. You can go super fast, way above normal, but it doesn't let you do that while you're in atmosphere or while you're burning a rocket. But there is physics time warp, which is just it's still calculating all the physics, and the max time warp was way lower, but it means that you can actually accelerate time during these long burns, which is useful. And then at the end, you just kind of throttle down and just chase the maneuver node around a little bit until you get within 1/10 of a meter per second. And now, it's not showing an intercept. What? Is that another bug? My game might just be super fucked up. Why is it? Because it's showing escape velocity right now. Like a lot of escape velocity. That's weird. Why did you do that? Like, you guys saw the orbit that I set, and I got that maneuver down to 0.01 meters per second. I'm gonna... Did I have a quick save there? I should have, but I don't know if I did. I have an autosave, so that hopefully will be fine. Let me just fast forward and see if it's bugged out. Like, see where the bug out happened. 'Cause yeah, I'm apparently going crazy fast right now. I shouldn't be. If I just burn a little bit retrograde, will that fix it? I think I'm gonna have to burn a lot of it retrograde. I have no idea what happened there. That's not... I make many mistakes frequently, but I feel like that was not really on me. Okay, I'm gonna load a quick save and redo that. I don't know what just happened. Let me see if this is hopefully at a good time. Okay, this is right before the burn, so that's good. This is literally right before the burn. Okay. So I'm now accelerating. Rocket's burning. You don't need to worry about that blue dotted line. That's after if I weren't to capture at Minmus, I would hit the moon and that would fuck with my orbit and launch me out further, but that's not something I have to worry about right now. Okay. So, I wonder if it's something with my physics time warp that screwed it up. So far, this looks exactly like what I want. Okay, that was literally the exact same maneuver node. I literally just quick saved into the same burn again, and this time it worked. So I don't know what happened that previous time, but something bugged out. I love this game, but trust me, it is... No one will ever argue it's super stable or bug-free. Getting into sunlight, and I can do a little bit more science. I can do another magnometer report. And I can do another one of these experiments, except this time I'm in high orbit instead of in low orbit. Go. Collect all that. Quick save again, and now I can fast forward to Minmus. Assuming it doesn't just fucking randomly break again. There goes the moon and Kerbin. And you can see his tiny little dot as Minmus out here. And he just lost where it is. It's out here somewhere. That might be it? No, that's just background star. Oh, there it is. It's just a tiny little thing. Hopefully this is on this orbit. It's not going to take another full orbit to intercept, right? No, it's 22 days. That should be right. So what I can do here is just do a little burn here in the middle of my intercept to just try and tighten up my intercept. Because right now I'm gonna enter, or my closest approach is 1.7 million, or 170,000 kilometers technically. But if I burn just a little bit, you know, only a couple meters per second, but because I'm so far away, those couple meters per second add up. And now I'm at a 10 kilometer orbit instead of 170,000. So now, if I fast forward to my Minmus intercept, see, it's coming in. Very slowly. In 2 minutes. There we go. So now I can do a whole bunch of science real quick, and then I can actually get myself into an orbit and land. Go. So we got that science. Now, if we get down here, and then you could set up a maneuver node here, but because Minmus is so low velocity, I'm just going to warp to the periapsis and then just burn retrograde to bring myself into an actual proper orbit. Yeah. So yeah, even, you know, generally your periapsis is your highest velocity, and Minmus is so small that the maximum velocity, even on a flyby orbit, is like 300 meters per second. Versus Kerbin, which is, I think, 1,400, 1,600, something like that. There we go. Nice. Almost circular orbit. Now I can do some... So I just did the science in high orbit, but now I'm in nice low orbit, so I can do the rest of the science. I don't have all the maneuver buttons because I'm playing in campaign and my pilot is only level 1. That is not a... Like, it's only in sandbox mode you see everything. Until you get a really high level pilot, then you get everything. Or a really high level probe core. Alright, so now we just gotta find a place to land. And Minmus is nice because it has these flats that make it very easy to land, so let's just aim for this one because it's the first one I see. You can see I'm getting these EVA report pops in here because technically you can do an EVA report over every single biome, which is a very good source of science, and if you were playing for real, you would want to do that because it's worth it. It's just kind of tedious. And I really don't need that much science, so I'm just avoiding it. Unfortunately, I'm going to come down like on almost on the nighttime, but that's fine. Also, Minmus has a relatively high orbit, or high rotation, so actually you gotta be careful about setting a maneuver node too far in advance, because you can see I had this plan to land here, but then the planet rotated while I was in orbit. I can actually just do it by eye. Actually, I don't know if I want to land on the night side. It's not like we're landing on a perfectly flat surface, so it's not that dangerous, but I might just wait a couple orbits for another flat to show up on this side. Like that one looks nice. Oh. Okay, I'll wait one more orbit because I just kind of overshot it. There we go. So now we got this nice flat surface. Very easy to land on. And Minmus is so low gravity that you basically can just kill your entire orbital velocity and just come straight down, which is nice. Although very slow. Just do a quick EVA report while we're about to crash. It's like a half a meter per second landing. A whole bunch of science. Can grab these two. Come down here. Plant the flag. It's actually kind of a pain in the ass to navigate on Minmus on foot because it's so low gravity. It's actually annoying to move around. Play a little golf because golf is science, apparently. And then start setting up this science stuff. Where's my jetpack? Ow. Come on. There we go. Let me restore these while I'm here. Now get that engineer down there to deploy the solar panels, because he gets a bonus to efficiency of them, because he's an engineer. And that's how solar panels work. If you know more about them, then that means they're more efficient. That's just science. Alright, now, there is one more piece of science I would like to get, and that's a rock. But the rocks are small. There is a cheaty way to find them, but just for the sake of not cheating too much, let's just fly around and see if we can find one. I don't know if those weird flashes are graphical glitches or if they're part of this. Okay, that's probably a glitch. Part of the visual pack I'm using. If you're ever EVAing around a planet, be careful because you have a very limited amount of jetpack fuel. You don't want to run out of that because walking home takes a very long time. So I'm just keeping an eye out for a tiny speck on the horizon because that'll be a rock I can recover. There's one. Go. Let's quick save to be safe. And fly home. Uh-oh. Oh, that was close. Alright, so the nice thing about Minmus, especially if you're just starting out on a campaign mode, is that if you want science, Minmus has super low gravity and it has a bunch of biomes. And a lot of those biomes are close together. So I want to say it's like 800, where's my map? How much delta V I actually need to get home. There it is. So, Minmus. So we're talking about maybe 1,000 meters per second delta V. Probably less, but need 1,000. I have almost 2,000. So, what I can do is throw a quick save down. And then, I'm just going to land on these hills over here and get some more science. because it's technically a different biome. And the gravity is so low that you only need like a couple 100 meters per second to boost yourself around. That's where having this landing thing from Kerbal Engineer is very useful. For just pointing a direction, wait until your landing marker is where you want it to be, or a little bit past where you want it to be, and then land. So I'll try to land like right here. I don't know why my gear just went up. I think that's a mod I have installed that I don't like. I should probably disable. I don't want it automatically fucking with my gear. We just spin ourselves around and get ready to break. Person in Twitch chat, what is your question? I actually put way too much fuel into that little hop. Could have done it with less. I don't even see my marker for where I'm going to land. You can also just use the map if you don't want to fuck with that, so... I'm coming down here, just that right now I'm too high to really see the marker, apparently. It's a good situation to make sure you can click on this to change from sea level to... the aerodynamic overlay in the planes, the arrow that's pointing up should be your lift. That's just showing that you have lift and roughly how much you have. It's a good thing. Just make sure that that blue ball is behind the yellow ball, because otherwise you're going to have a very fun time trying to fly that. It's so weird that you didn't have that auto option on Twitch last time, Make. This is going to be quite a slope. I guess it'll be pretty flat. Shouldn't be too bad. So this is lowlands. I'm guessing that area up there is mid or highlands. So I might be able to get another biome out of this too. What that big white line is. It's probably just a, or I guess it's a little slope between biomes if I had to guess. Go. So that was, 250 meters per second, but I got essentially a whole extra landing out of it. So for science purposes, that's extremely worth it. Alright, so I'm going to try to do one more, see if the top of this hill is another biome. If it is, cool. If not, we'll just head home. I probably have close to enough science, if not way over enough, to actually finish my... finish the tech tree. Just because of how I have the science cranked up on this save. If you're doing suicide burns, there's, this literally has it on there. I don't know, on stock, I think you just gotta kind of look at your velocity and know what your thruster weight is, which is really annoying. Oh, that was way too high of a burn. Yes, KSP is an actual game. The purple ball is your center of thrust. I don't know about consoles, but you can turn it off on PC. Its center of thrust should be roughly behind the center of mass, and that's pretty much all that really matters with it. Kerbal Engineer is this mod, the one that I've been using a bunch. It's extremely useful. So I'm guessing this will be Midlands up here, maybe Highlands. Midlands, okay. If I was messing with, I have ScanSat installed on this save right now, but it's a huge time sink to get set up. But it's a very cool and rewarding way to, you know, you can map out the biomes on a planet. You map out like altitudes and slopes. So if you're trying to find a place to land a big vehicle, you can send a satellite ahead of time to map the planet, like altimetry, and then you can find a non-sloped area in there. It's cool. There's also a separate slopes biome right here, but that's annoying. Well, that's one thing to watch out for if you're doing hops like this. Sometimes your nav balls switch from orbital to surface velocity, and that can really fuck you up. I don't know. It's if your hop is too high altitude, it'll mess with you. Also, thank you, guy in Twitch chat who is following me because I'm a good teacher. I like talking about this stuff. It's one of the few things I'm knowledgeable on. And just to repeat, I'm not necessarily good at this game by any means. I just understand the theory of how to be good. But I tend to get way too OCD and I tend to forget way too much stuff. Why does it do that? I gotta figure out which mod is doing that automatically deploys and undeploys gear, because it's a problem. Did it again. You son of a bitch. No, I want my gear down. Thank you, other guy who followed me. I'm like a proper e-celebrity now. Hooray. Be a bit of a slope, but I'll make it work. 6 degrees, yeah, roughly. I wound up being off at the end, but even being off by 50% is still half as much fuel spent on inclination change. You just gotta make sure you're launching at the correct 6 degrees, because depending on where in the orbit Minmus is, or where on, which side of the orbit you're launching towards, you either need to launch 6 degrees north or 6 degrees south. And you don't need to do, if you have a rocket that's efficient, that has enough fuel, you can just launch equatorial and then do the inclination change in orbit. It's just more efficient to do it this way. Alright. I could probably do another hop, but I think we've gotten more than enough science, so I'm gonna head home. So, we need to get into orbit, and then we just need to get ourselves pointing retrograde. So we're gonna launch to the east, and then when we're When we're about here in the orbit, we're going to start burning prograde, which will then expand our orbit out backwards towards Minmus, which will, by extension, move it retrograde relative to Kerbin. So east is that way. Already in orbit. Gravity is so crazy low. Oh, that is much more velocity than I meant to use, but that's fine. Should probably actually slow down a bit, because right now I'm actually boosting myself. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna take a little spin out there and just visit interplanetary space real quick. And then we'll just turn around and boost back, because you get more experience and more science for going to the sun. You just gotta look at, if you want to figure out which direction inclination you need, you just need to look at, you know, zoom out on the map view and look at whether the intercept on your, because you're not just launching to a 6-degree inclination, you're launching to a 6-degree inclination when the space center intersects with the Minmus orbit. So here, let me zoom out here. I explained this earlier, but I think that was before everybody started watching. So you're at Kerbal Space Center. If you just launched, like right now, Kerbal Space Center is, so Minmus is way above. Hang on, let me select. Actually, I can't select Minmus right now. It's kind of hard. The game is being weird, and I can't really show it properly. But if I were to launch 6 degrees right now, I would be on a 6-degree inclination, but it would be a 6-degree inclination that is not at all in the same orbit as Minmus is. So you need to wait until the Kerbal Space Center intersects with where this orbit is equatorial. So if you look at, the moon is perfectly equatorial. So if you look at where the moon and Minmus's orbits intersect, like right there is where you need to line up your space center. And then at that point, because in this case, you know, you see the orbit is going from above the orbital plane to below it, you would need to launch south 6 degrees. Whereas if you wait until this side of the orbit, I know it's kind of messy with all the lines, but here Minmus is going up, so you would need to do it north 6 degrees. But it, like, you have to be very careful when you launch. It's more important than the inclination of you launch into. Because if you launch into a 6-degree inclination at the wrong time, you might potentially need to cancel that out and then also add another 6 degrees. So you might be doing double the burn instead of a single one. Honestly, if you're starting out, I would just say go for a equatorial orbit and then do all of it do all of the changes in orbit, because then you get the ascending node markers, and that's way easier. But yeah, Kerbal Engineer will give you the time to the next ascending or descending node, which is when the orbits intersect like that. Okay. So I'm just going to have my Kerbals hang out for a month while they boost towards interplanetary, or while they coast towards the sun a little bit. Or a solar orbit, I should say. The vast majority of the orbits in the solar system are within the same plane, and they're all facing the same direction, but there is absolutely inclination differences, and especially when you're dealing with moons. I'm pretty sure Pluto is on a pretty harsh inclination compared to everything else. It's also highly eccentric, which makes it another pain in the ass. I'm not actually going to the sun, I'm just going very slightly. So you see this blue line here, or the outer line, is the orbit of Kerbin, and I'm just very slightly altering my, breaking away from Kerbin to get into solar space, and then as soon as I get all the science from there, I'll boost back and just head straight back to Kerbin. I got the fuel for it, so there's really no negative. And keep in mind, like, in KSP, the Space Center is perfectly on the equator. In reality, there is no Space Center perfectly on the equator. Except I think there might be one in the Caribbean or in like French Guiana or something that is, but like the rockets that launch from Florida or from California or from Baikonur in Russia or from China, none of them are on the equator. They're all launching at a certain inclination. So no matter what, you have to deal with that. There we go. That's some free science that I probably don't need. Collect it all. So now I just need 2 points. Just need to target Kerbin again, hopefully. Now, if I want to catch it, I think I just need to burn prograde. Because I technically burned retrograde to get out. And this is a very inefficient burn, but it shouldn't really matter because I'm just getting, there we go. So I'm just going to get back into an encounter with Kerbin, and then I'm just going to burn hard retrograde to get myself into a really low Kerbin. Get myself into Kerbin's atmosphere, and then from there I just land. Alright, let's turn retrograde. So there's Kerbin. There's the moon. I don't even know where Minmus is. It's too tiny. Now we could do multiple passes, but let me save, but I'm pretty sure Heat Shield can do this in one, so we're not gonna bother. It would be cool to land at the Space Center, but I don't know if this mod has the ability to say to set which stage. Would be very useful if it could. Because this is showing me the aerodynamic entry for my current rocket, but I'm going to re-enter with just this stage. But if I want to adjust my orbit to make my re-entry land at a certain point, I need to have fuel on that stage, which I could have done, but I didn't because I'm stupid. So I'm just going to... If I... Sure, that'll at least land on the light side. If it's in the middle of the ocean or whatever, then so be it. Quick save again, just in case I fuck something up, which is highly likely. Dump that. Close this up. And then... Wait, what? That's weird. Okay, I guess it's gonna take multiple passes now, but that's fine, I guess. Although it's not gonna come down on the light side now, so that's let me quick load that again, and just get a better. Just knock my velocity down a little bit more. hard to select the planet sometimes. Sure, let's see how that goes. That's also going to land on the night side, which is not good, but... Oh, that's a very low... Okay. No, that's... I didn't realize how low that periapsis was. That's very low. You know what? I'm just going to leave the rocket stage on until I get into a low orbit, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, re-entering from basically interplanetary velocities at 5,000 or 5 kilometers is very low. Playing this game without save scumming is possibly the hardest game you can possibly play. Even if you do all the math right and you do everything planned out perfectly, there's still like a 50% chance something's just going to bug out during your save. Very slowly working my way down. At least with Apollo 13, you can explain why everything went to shit. You are not allowed to do that with this game because there is no logic in this game with how things bug out. Okay, so I'm actually going to accelerate a little bit and see if that'll put my capsule on a good re-entry course. I just want to land on the light side. Ideally, it'd be fun to try to hit the Space Center specifically, but the way this rocket is set up makes it really hard. Playing without time warp is way stupider than playing without saving. You theoretically can do missions safely without time warp. You really just can't play properly without saving. Gonna do the time-tested method of removing the unwanted rocket stage. There we go. That gets it out of the way. Okay, I'm coming down on the night side again, apparently. Whatever. At this point, fuck it. Hopefully I have enough ablator. Close this. Let me get a quick EVA report, because I can. I just did that to kick the rocket stage further away. It didn't matter. Sometimes it is useful, like if you have a big, complicated craft, sometimes getting the rocket stage away so that it doesn't accidentally hit you when you re-enter is fine. But usually you can just do that by knowing about drag characteristics and mass and doing it manually. We're coming in real hot, so this should be exciting. With a little bit of tweaking, I could have landed at the desert airfield. Actually had like almost a perfect amount of ablator. I'm down to 30 units and I'm basically getting close to the point where I don't need it anymore. If it ran out right now, I'd be fine. Let me see if I can just use aerodynamics to get myself a little bit more distance so I can land on the light side. So you just tilt your caps a little bit, and that generates a tiny amount of lift that pushes you further than you otherwise would. Well, right now I'm fighting against a whole lot of velocity, so that's better in the upper atmosphere to do that. Alright, I'm just gonna land in the coast here, off the coast of nothing. Quick EV airport. There we go. Grab some quick end of the road curb and science. There we go. Let's see how much science we got from that, because it's going to be a whole lot. And again, remember, I'm playing with 200% science on this save just to progress quickly, so it's going to be a whole lot more than it normally would be, but it's going to be a lot. $8,000. So I'm pretty sure that'll get me through the tech tree, or at least the vast, vast majority of it. Let's upgrade our R&D center real quick. Get all the high-end rockets. All the advanced science stuff, which I don't really need, but that's fine. Not quite enough to unlock everything, but enough to unlock most things. Probably not going to stream too much longer, but let's just see if we can real quick build a simple Duna rocket. So at the top we want just a really basic thing like this and this. I think literally just that is what we'll return with. The less we have to return, the cheaper the mission is. Now, underneath that, we need our cargo bay with all of our stuff. Actually, you know what? Let me just load the previous rocket and save myself the time of fucking with that. So if I just load this, and then just tear off all that stuff. Okay, now get these shitty small batteries off and replace them with a couple of big batteries. I just landed from Minmus. I did a stopover on by the sun too. Actually, let me get batteries first. Do I not have the... Oh, I guess I don't have the really big batteries. It's a bummer. Settle for the 400 ones. I have a whole bunch... Actually, you know what? I wonder if I can... There we go. That's a whole bunch more space. I could probably do these truss caps. Make it look better. Although, if this thing's going to be landing, I probably don't want... I want it to be as short as possible. Alright, let's get some batteries in there. Let's get... Not sure what kind of design I actually want for this lander. Huh. Actually, I think I know. Okay. I'm well aware that there's clipping, however, this is not the same kind of clipping I'm worried about usually. Get some nice big solar panels on this. this thing not flat? It's weird. Actually, you know what? Instead of using those ugly ones, I'll just use a big... that was a big one. Oh, geez. Let me do that. These are very unnecessarily large, but they're kind of cool, so I might just stick with them anyway. Alright, let's get a... I don't think I need a reaction wheel on this. Maybe for the transfer stage, but not for this. Okay, so there's that. Now let's get a fuel tank for the center here. It's going to be a relatively short one. Not that short. Actually, maybe that short. That might be enough. If I throw another... Where's the engine I'm looking for? There it is. So that would be... How much do I need to return from Duna? Where did my map go? I just had it open. So I need... It's like about 2,000-ish, a little over 2,000. And this is 2,400, which... Yes, that'll be fine. You know what, I'm actually going to drop these solar panels for now. I'll figure out something else later. What I am going to do is... Was it too big? So if I do this, and then what engines do I want? Maybe just some of these. It's massively overkill, I think. Yeah, that's super overkill. I don't need anything that big. If I just use a bunch of these, that's still way more than enough. And on top, I slap a couple of... Actually, no. I'm just going to use nose cones on here. You always want to use as much engine as possible early on to get through the early part of the flight is the least efficient. So the more thrust you have, the better, generally within reason. As long as you're not dealing with like supersonic drag, you're good. Oh, idiot! Didn't put these on decouplers. That's overkill. I want 2 of these, and then I want a little tiny pylon in the middle. Fuel depots are pretty easy. You just put a big fuel tank with a docking port on it, and then you put it in, then you launch it and put it in a useful orbit. That's probably an issue with your landing gear. If the plane is screwing around, is wobbling around. Use the rotation tool and make sure it's on absolute, and then just wiggle the landing gear with the sliders here to make sure that they're the same, or like the right. They're all on identical angles, basically. There we go. That'll work. I barely even need landing legs on this thing. It's got such a wide stance. Actually, add a little bit more fuel to this, which isn't necessary, but why not? Let's get some landing legs. Some parachutes, just for good measure. Okay, need some ladders. Because this is all gonna land on the surface of Duna, and then when I take off, these are gonna be the main fuel to take off, and then they'll dump the boosters, and then this is gonna be the stage that gets me back to Kerbin. But the boosters are like, I'm not gonna use these parachutes to land back home. When I get back to Kerbin, it's gonna be just this. And that's got its own parachute. So these parachutes are just to slow me down, and then I'll use, because Duna's got a really thin atmosphere, so these are going to slow me down a bit, and then these engines here will do the rest of the little bit of work they need to do. Although I'll do some asparagus staging here to just make sure I have maximum thrust to weight when I take off. I expect them to survive in this tiny craft because there's no life support mod currently installed. So that's how I expect them to survive. When I go back to my real campaign, there will be no problem. Yes. All of this is all science stuff. It'll get dumped and then it's kind of a waste of money, but it means that my final craft can be way lighter, so I mean, technically I could throw this on the capsule, it would be fine, but it'd be also be unrealistic because you wouldn't do that in reality. Like your experiments, well, in reality your experiments wouldn't be this large that they would require like cubic meters worth of space to carry around. Oh shit, those don't need to be duplicated. Okay, so yeah, this gives me 4,300 meters per second of LTV just to get home, so that's not going to be a problem. And it's only 41 tons fully fueled, so that's nothing. So I think the only thing I need is solar panels, mostly. This design does not give me a lot of places to put panels. That'll work. I have another campaign that I have full life support mods on, and in that I actually build the giant habitation modules and stuff, but this exists just to be a tutorial stream mostly for some friends of mine, so I'm not worrying too much about the roleplayness of my craft. Okay, so this is the bit that's landing on Duna. I'm sure I'll add some more bits here and there. Actually, I need communications probably. That's probably a bit much. Cover up my beautiful flag. If you have a pilot in your vessel, you don't need to have, like, he can do maneuvers without communications. But if you're sending probes, then yes, having a relay network is very useful. And I personally really enjoy setting them up. I think they're fun, but they're also pretty tedious. Okay, so decoupler, and then we need a big fucking fairing for this whole thing. I should probably put a little spacer in there. This is going to be a massively oversized, unnecessary rocket. I personally would never send a mission without a pilot, but if you're going to, then yes, you should have relays set up. Clamshell, high ejection force, 2 sides. Screw it, let's do 3 sides. Make it look snazzier. so overkill. Yes. So this will be, as soon as I get out of Kerbin's atmosphere, this will get jettisoned. Well, that is worth considering if I want a heat shield to enter Duna. It's not super necessary, and I'll have enough fuel to avoid it, but realistically wise, you would have it. If you're playing on science mode and you'd lose too much delta V from a bigger pod, just make a bigger rocket. That's my advice. Just when in doubt, make a bigger rocket. Okay, let's see here. So on Kerbin, how much thrust to weight? That is not enough thrust to weight at all. That is extremely not enough. Oh wait, never mind. Okay, that was my sea level thrust to weight. So I want 3 of these instead. That gives me 0.87. That's still not as much as I'd like. So let's do 4. Again, massively overkill, but who cares? That's 1.13. That's plenty. Then I want a big decoupler here and a tube. So that's pretty much that entire stage. Actually, I'm gonna add a... Oh, did I not get the giant pods yet? Shit. Oh, no, I don't have them. That's right. I'm not playing on my save. What I should do is add... This is a nice big react... Actually, I can get rid of this thing. And instead add a couple reaction wheels in there. Get myself some more maneuverability. Okay, so that's my upper stage. Now I just need a first stage. Let's put this big fucker on here. The IRL policy is always minimum viable product. Or, like, this shit is expensive, so in real life, everything is always the minimum. But in real life, things are a lot harder, so the minimum is usually also not far off from the limits of current technology. Alright, that actually, that was very simple, but that first stage is pretty much perfect. Thrust weight of 1.8, 2,300 meters of delta V, that's pretty much exactly what I would want. I just overkill it because I'm super paranoid and I like to take every single science instrument on every single mission. So go for a nice SLS look here. Just for aesthetics sake, is there a good adapter for the 5-meter section? There's no negative to having more engines. I'm used to my mods where I have way more options for for this sort of just like structural design stuff. But I have those all not installed currently. So I'll just use an engine plate, even though they weigh a ton and don't really add anything. So I use it still use, but we don't use it, like the US doesn't need to use it anymore. Pretty sure this rocket's done, more or less. Oh, that's the wrong decoupler. Fairing will be down here. I think all I need is some science equipment and kind of it. Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me just finish this and then I'll walk through it. Yeah, Dune is Mars, Eve is Venus, Moho is Mercury, Jool is Jupiter. Drez is like Vesta, basically. So it's an asteroid belt object, and then Elu it's Pluto, but it's also designed after Enceladus and Europa, though, so it's weird. So on here, I want this thing might have enough delta V to go to Ike as well, possibly. maybe not. I haven't really built it for that, so I don't know. That's 6 power, 4 out. Okay, that'll be fine. I mean, the Mark III pod is 2.5 meters. The Mark 1 is 1.25, so it's twice as big, basically. Okay, so first stage is these engines, then this whole booster. That gives me 2,300 meters of delta V. That'll get me to the upper atmosphere by itself. Then it gets dumped, and then then this takes over, which is, it looks really tiny, but these are really efficient engines, so this will just be the thing that gets me from the upper atmosphere into orbit, and probably part of the burn towards Duna. I might actually want more fuel on here. That's another 2,300. How much is the burn to Duna? It's about 1,000. So that actually, it should be fine as is. So that's, so yeah. So this will get me into upper atmosphere slash, you know, suborbital. This will get me into orbit, and then this should also be enough to boost me to Duna. Then, actually, yeah, that's counting the fairing. Without the fairing, it should be significantly less, because the fairing weighs 7 tons. So then, once that's expended, this will get dumped. This will be what lands me on Duna. It'll be, all the engines will fire, but it'll be, the fuel will get sucked out of these side boosters. Parachutes will deploy. It'll, you know, landing gear, ladders, get there, plant my flag, put my science down. Then it'll launch. These will do most, the side boosters do most of the heavy lifting. They'll get dumped, and then this will be the thing that launches me back to Kerbin. Then once I'm back on the trajectory towards Kerbin, I'll dump this, and this will be what re-enters in Kerbin. Piece of cake. The only potential worry is, no, it should be fine, because these are the vector engines. They have crazy gimbals, so I don't need to worry about orientation on here. Let's throw some launch clamps on, just because they look cool, even though they're super not necessary. Now I just need to wait until the Duna transfer window comes up. So there is a built. Let me see if I can figure this out, because in 1.12 they added a proper built-in alarm clock, but I have no goddamn idea how it's supposed to work. So I want to go from Kerbin to Duna. Add alarm. Okay, that worked. Last time I tried it, it did not work that well. The vast majority of the time, and to some extent, when it comes to interplanetary, you always launch on a home and transfer, which means I'll explain it as I do it. But yes, you're burning for a couple minutes, and then you're traveling for like 6 to 8 months. Also, yeah, now that I think about it, with a couple tweaks, I could have taken that craft that I just built, and it would have been totally viable to visit Duna's moon as well. But without adding a bunch of heat shields and stuff and increasing its size, I think it's going to be easier just to go as is. There we go. So now Duna should be at the right position to transfer in the most efficient way possible. Oh, that background is very bright here. So Duna is ahead of me in its orbit by a little bit, but it's also moving, because it's further away from the sun, it's moving slower. So if I launch from here and just launch perfectly prograde along Kerbin's orbit, I'll gain a little bit of velocity, and that will be just enough to get me to catch up to Duna right over here on the far side of the sun. So it's the absolute minimum energy you need to intercept Duna. Yeah, I don't know what else I was going to say there. Yeah, Hohmann transfers are, in order to do like if I wanted to take just aim at Duna and just go straight from Kerbin to there, it would be, that's where you're talking about like fusion drives and shit. So that's not something we're doing in stock KSP. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. There's the ground. The one other thing I needed to do is make sure I have my science inventory set up. I have the ground experiments, but I need to make sure my scientist has stuff in his pockets that he's supposed to have. Which he didn't, so I'm glad I did that. So and I want Bill to have repair kits. Actually, before I launch this, I need to do one test because it could go very poorly if I don't do this. So let me get rid of this and put the landing gear down. And just put this on the pad and make sure I can actually climb out, because ladders are very buggy in this game. You will not enter a collision course with another object, basically. Like, it's, and if you did, you would know about it weeks or months ahead of time, and you would just fire your thruster by like for a hundredth of a second to just very slightly alter your trajectory. So it would be a non-issue. Hey, the ladder actually worked going down, and uh-oh, there's the part where it breaks. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, let's revert that and fix that, because that's a problem. I think if I just tweak that a tiny little bit. That might work. Let's find out. All right, try that again. Oh. Okay, that worked. Let's see, can he get to the ground and get back up again? Oh. This is how you climb ladders. If you're using CCAN, you click the little checkbox next to the mods, and then you hit apply changes. And then you make sure you launch the game from CCAN. Oh god, why are ladders like this? Why can't I put them upside, like, it's, ladders don't have orientation, they're just fucking ladders. Okay, I think I know how to fix this, at least somewhat. Okay, let's try that. While I'm at it, I'll add... just a couple more rungs there to make sure it's guiding in properly. Oh, shit. I may have just overwritten my entire rocket. That's fine. It's very simple, so it's easy to fix, but... I'm probably not going to launch this today. I'll do it next time I stream. That was stupid of me to not rename it before I hit save. Alright. If the mods don't have a checkbox, they're not compatible. You gotta change, or they don't think they're compatible, so you gotta go into the options and compatibility. Here, I can, rather than explaining it with words, I can explain it here. Let's go into compatible game versions and select the first handful. You don't need to hit all of them, but just like down to 1.9 or 1.8 will be enough. It's still doing that. Why are you doing this? Like, yes, I get that the ladder is technically upside down, but it's a fucking ladder. Okay, I'm on the ground. I'm running around like an asshole. Okay. Now. Can we get back to the top? Just go straight. Just pick a ladder and stick to it. You son of a bitch. There we go. Okay. Okay. Now up. Okay. Now we're climbing up backwards, because that's how you do it. Okay. Let me space that bottom ladder out a little bit more, but otherwise... It's because, like, because I don't want to stick this, because I could just stick this ladder up here, but that it looks terrible, and it's, like, this is re-entering, so I want to keep the mass down. But that means putting it down here means it goes upside down, and that's, it hates that. It just freaks out. If I space this one out a little bit more, it should at least prevent some of that. It looks stupider, but it might work better. Oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh, where is he? What is happening here? Look at his picture down here. Oh no. Oh, I think he's trapped inside the... I think he's in here. Oh no. Oh no. Bob, please. Oh. Hey, we're good. We're good. It's all according to plan. He's fine. You know, I've never questioned that, because that's how they do it in, like... How do you get into an Apollo capsule on a Saturn V? Is there an entryway, or is the door of the capsule just sticking out the top? Because, like this is the top of the Apollo capsule, but there's a launch escape system covering it. So I guess there must just be a doorway somewhere. Because in reality what you would do is you would have the fairing covering... It would basically come out and then it would jam in, like, here. I can show that in the VAB. But... Okay, this upside down ladder thing is going to have to stop, even though it's obviously better from both a design and an aesthetic standpoint. The game just seems to hate it. So, we're going to have to do... This then causes its own problems, because now, in order to get this facing the right way, the ladder's sticking up here, but it needs to connect to over here, which is just a whole pain in the ass. But, like, in reality, you would have a fairing more like... I guess you can't really do it with this design. But, like, picture... Oh, wait, hang on. You would have something more like this, except picture that the capsule was sticking out more of the top. So you would have... The capsule part would technically be out, but the rest of the stage would be covered by the fairing. Because, I mean, the capsule itself is obviously pretty aerodynamic. But because this is a lander and it's super short, it's going to be difficult to do that. Okay, so let's see if this ladder's usable. I'm going to spend more time getting this ladder to work than I did designing and testing the lander. Okay, that worked. And then that worked. Now I'm on the ground and I'm running around. Okay, top of this ladder. And then it just, hey, it actually worked the way it's supposed to work. How crazy is that? This is actually important to get right, because last time I tried to do this, I built the whole Duna lander, but I didn't actually test that the ladders worked. So I got the Duna and I got a Kerbal on the ground, and then he just jumped off the top, and then he got stranded. So then he had to grab onto the ladder at the ground side, he could get onto the ladder, but he couldn't climb all the way to the top. So he just held onto the ladder while I launched the rocket, and then once I got in space, I just floated him into the hatch. It's disappointing, but it's what we have to deal with. Sorry. Okay, let me real quick just recreate the rest of the rocket that I accidentally overwrote. Might actually go with a slightly bigger fuel tank here. Just a little bit more. Wait, is this? That's too much. I don't use Twitch that much. I don't know how to clip stuff. Okay, so that's still almost a thruster weight of 1, but it's got significantly more delta V in it, which should make it easier to... That'll make sure I don't need to worry about having a heat shield. Might need a couple more engines to carry that extra mass. No, I definitely don't. In fact, I could actually add a little bit more fuel to this stage too, and just account for that. Still a 1.5 thrust to weight, that's pretty much perfect. Make sure all of my other stages are staged properly. I think that's all good. trying to think if I want to expand out this stage with lander at all, because if I did, it would probably have enough fuel to get me to Ike and back, which would be cool. Specifically, if I had the side boosters were bigger. The size of the middle stage doesn't really matter that much. Well, here, let me save this as Duna 1 and then make a separate Duna 2 vehicle, just to see if that's feasible, because it'd be nice to hit Ike too. Let me pull this landing gear off, pull parachutes off. That's being weird. So with that, what did I gain? Okay, now I have almost 5,000 just in the upper stage. That's a lot. That might be enough for an ike landing. That should be more than enough for an ike landing. It's a much uglier rocket, but it's fine. Wait, can I replace those with... Not really a fan of the way that those clip into the sides of the tanks, but I'm not sure if there's much way to fix that. Actually, I guess I can do... There we go. Might actually cause problems for my ability to put it in a fairing, but I can figure that out. Thrust weight in the first stage is fine. Thrust weight on the second stage is not fine. What I'm gonna do is increase the size of that second stage and add a 5th engine. Because fuck it. Still pretty low. Let's add a 6th engine. That should be good enough. That's 4,500, which is less than I would like. It's more than enough, but it's less than I would prefer. Could do and this is probably completely unnecessary, but it'd be cool looking. And that's the most important thing with rockets. I don't know why it won't let me just do go on. Is this entire tank rotated or something? Why is it not? There we go. gonna fly this whole mission, but I'm just curious how well this thing works. How well this thing flies early on. So let's just give it a shot. And then I'll probably stop streaming for the day. So I didn't put any launch clamps on, which was probably a mistake. Also, I didn't put any auto struts on, which is definitely a mistake. This thing's going to be wobbly as hell. This looks like a real rocket. I don't know why there's no audio, but that's probably fine. It looks pretty, except for the fact that they eject so soon that they're all just going to fall directly back down onto the launch site, but that's fine. I'll be out of range when that happens, so I don't need to worry about it. It's really weird that there's basically no sound on these. Oh, I can hear them hitting. I think they might have just barely missed the launch site. Definitely too shallow of a gravity turn, but that's fine. Oh, geez, why is this... Oh, that was... That That stage did not have enough thrust on it, I guess. It didn't have enough thrust to overcome the drag that I had from going so shallow in the atmosphere. That's a problem. The answer, you know what the answer is to that is just strap another engine or two on that stage and problem solved. Instead of 6 engines, what if it had 8? Is that even gonna fit? No. Okay, how about it has 7 plus 1? Wait, I don't even need that. Okay, 6 is enough. Okay. This should be better. Alright, let's try this again. Start a very early but very minor turn just because I want to make sure these boosters don't land on the launch site and break it. What is what? Are you referring to something in chat or something I'm doing? It's a rocket. What? It's what a rocket's supposed to look like, not those things that you were posting. This is probably way too shallow of a trajectory again. Oh well. Okay, I'm going to have to go prograde because I'm losing way too much fuel to drag right now. Granted, I also have so much thrust, drag doesn't really matter, but still. Prefer to avoid that. I just have to hope this second stage has enough enough thrust to overcome the drag of the fairing and get away from the first stage. It should, but it might not. Oh, nope. Nope, still doesn't. Either that, or it might actually be, that might not be a drag issue, that might be a, because of the way I did the staging on that, it might just be screwing with it. Like, it might have just been a bugged part thing. It's fine, it's fixed now. Look at this dinky little thing. Radically overpowered, dinky little thing. I try to get up to about 80,000 or 80 kilometers. Alright, I'm gonna go to 85 just because there's gonna be some drag. Not nearly as much drag as I thought, but that's fine. And I can jettison the fairings, get myself into a circular orbit, and then I can probably just go to Duna. I know I said I wasn't going to, but I don't know. I might. We'll see.